Maybe not. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Photo Mish Mash. This one being broadcast live February 10th, 2020. We have a packed show. I got so much content. There's actually not going to be a show for a couple of weeks, so I just kept finding interesting articles and discussion points and throwing them all in here, and I'm really excited to share all of it with you. First off, we got some Sony a7 IV rumors that seem pretty concrete, and we'll talk about those. We want to talk about an Indiegogo warning. I was moments away from plunking down hundreds of dollars on a product that looked awesome, and then it was actually Facebook's advertising that saved me from making this mistake. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The importance of gear insurance. I recently redid mine, found it to be a much more affordable option. So we're going to talk just about the whys of that and share our experiences. Plus lots and lots more, including hard drive failure stats. That's exciting stuff, isn't it? I don't actually know if we'll get to that. It's on the list. We'll see. Chat room, you can vote on that. But all of these stories, I'm really excited to sit down with my friends and co-hosts today. Tonya, how are you?
I'm doing all right. So I feel like January is always a little bit slow for me, and things are not a normal January for me. But I have a newborn session tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. Cool. Something to focus on. That's great. And speaking of a newborn session, you have started contributing to PEN, that's the Photo Enthusiast Network. Thank you so much. And just last night went out your article on posing, or just 6 must-know tips for newborn photography, filled with fantastic information and, of course, adorable pictures of babies.
Agreed.
So
Thank you
for that. And I think it's later this week that your masking tutorial is coming, and I know people are excited and waiting for that as well. So we're looking forward to that.
Good. And I'm working on the second one, but I've scrapped it like 3 or 4 times because I feel like I was just trying to add too much information to go over all of the tools and adjustment layers, and they're not all very useful. So I'm going to talk about the useful ones for photo editing in general. Lots of them are really good for graphic design and just creating different things. But since I think most PEN members are interested in how it applies to their photo editing, I've decided to pivot on that one. So, but
cool. All right.
They can let me know.
Looking forward to it. And I totally understand. There's often times where I'll record a whole video, and then about an hour later, I'll be like, okay, that was rough draft number 1. Let me start over.
Yep.
So yeah,
that's where I was.
And I've been doing this for a while, and I did that exact same thing earlier this week with another video that comes out later. So I understand. That's great. Tonya, your Instagram's on the screen. Folks should go there. Not only do you have a beautiful Instagram full of kind of inspirational and very fun, creative self-portraiture, but from there, people can access your other Instagrams full of either macro or, as you just mentioned, portrait photography. So people should go check that out and take a look. So thanks.
I know I really need to start posting again here soon, or Steve is going to beat me.
It's right. He had a snowstorm, and Steve's not here, but we'll still make fun of him because we love him. And he posted yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, he did.
A whole carousel of wonderful snowy photos.
He's on a roll.
So yeah, he's doing a good job. And I am excited to welcome back to the show my good friend David Carr. David, how are you doing?
I'm well. Busy with a lot of different things, but it's all good. Yeah, and we are having the most glorious day in Georgia right now. It's beautiful outside, so kind of one of those rare February surprises because it's probably going to be followed up with an ice storm this weekend. It looks like so. Yeah, but we're all is well. All is well. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and it's good to see you both here.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to say hi to the chat room as well. You mentioned the weather there in Atlanta, and the chat room's been sharing kind of their temperatures and weathers around. I always enjoy seeing that. It's kind of hit or miss whether I enjoy seeing that or not, because you got Pam in there. It was like sunny and 60s in San Diego, which sounds really, really lovely. It's actually quite a nice day. It's chilly, but it's very sunny here today.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm not gonna complain. But everybody is all abuzz because there might be snow this weekend in the lowlands of Seattle area, which is always a big deal. A half an inch and the city falls apart because they just don't have the plows and stuff. You go up the mountain and they all know what to do with feet of snow, but down the mountain,
yeah,
like,
that's
oh my God.
That's Georgia. I mean, we don't we don't know what to do with ourselves.
Yeah.
We just play.
And
we
get hard on, like the municipalities and stuff, but the reality is they just don't have snow plows.
Yeah,
so.
it would be pointless for them to keep all of that equipment up and serviced, and so on the occasional chance of snow. So
we just had a snow day yesterday, so
yeah. How many inches of snow did it take for you to get a snow day, Tonya?
Well, it was more the timing of the snow yesterday. It started like early in the morning and then didn't stop until about noon. So that just isn't good for schools. We didn't get a lot of accumulation, but the last, like a week ago, we had like 14 inches. So
I saw that a huge storm blew through there.
That's a good amount of snow.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. I used to live in Maryland. I think many people who followed me for a while know that. And then I moved to Vermont, and the difference between how Maryland could handle snow or not really, and Vermont, things just kept happening in Vermont unless it was really coming down and was forecast to come down for like 24 hours straight. Then they'd close school. But otherwise, no, you just kept going. There weren't that many roads. The plow to road ratio was really good. There were plenty of plows, and things were clear, and you just went about your business.
Well.
Yeah.
Well, we had a snow day yesterday, but that does not cancel basketball. There's basketball games and basketball practice for children.
Yeah, sports. Very few things cancel sports, right?
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. All right. And I said hi to our chat room, but I just want to say, if you're watching this and you're not a PEN member, of course, you can learn more about becoming a PEN member by going to photorec.tv/PEN. That's the easiest way to access that discount that we're providing for new members. It's just $24 for your first year. You get to submit images for this show, plus access a fantastic community and hundreds of hours of training videos on all kinds of stuff. We just mentioned Tonya's article, so there's new articles every week. There's new videos added every week. It's a fantastic resource if you want to improve as a photographer. I was thinking about this a little bit more, and not just advertising for PEN, but we are so quick to spend money on a new piece of gear, but I think people are much more reluctant or don't even think about spending money on education and just a little bit of knowledge is going to take you with your existing gear way further than a shiny new lens.
Absolutely.
Although, I do like shiny new lenses. This
well,
is
we
actually
all
just
do.
a loner. But, yeah, we all do. It's true.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just wanted to mention, too, if you've watched any of my videos, we are sponsored by Squarespace. If you're going to build a new website, I think it's in a video that's coming out later this week. My ad for Squarespace is building a website from scratch in Squarespace, and I do it in 3 minutes. So it really is that easy. I just cut out the loading time, after you click on something. And that's how easy it is to build a website on Squarespace. So I know I was in talks with one of our members over the last couple of days. She wants to build out a website, and she's currently got her stuff on Zenfolio. And Zenfolio is great. I'm a big fan of them. But to build a nice, clean website easily, Squarespace just does it for me. So you can check them out and save 10% by starting at squarespace.com/photorectv. All right. And then I have a little banner that just says hi chat room, but I already said that, so we're good.
I like that. I like that font. Is that,
what font?
Baskerville, or is that new? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm just making small talk.
I don't think I have control over the font itself. I can switch it so that it is a slightly different theme.
Oh, yeah.
This is the minimal theme.
Yeah.
And this is all run in StreamYard, which I've been very happy with. It's a little pricey for running at 1080p. It's $50 a month, which, there are other ways to do this, but to be able to bring you guys in so easily and have it all work pretty well, I'm happy with it, so I can't recommend it.
We should pass a virtual bucket through the chat room of the donation.
Or a lens. Oh,
or
virtual bucket. Yeah. I thought you meant the cute thing where I hand off to Tonya a lens and then she reaches off screen. I watch too many of those TikToks.
That actually, that would be great.
I don't do TikTok. Sorry.
Oh, Tonya, I think some of your content would be very good on TikTok.
I think it would.
And that's not. I hope.
I'm
Don't take
too
that.
old for TikTok already.
Oh no, I'm on there.
Are you? My kids have forbidden me to go on there. They're just like, no,
you have to.
Oh,
Come on, you're a cool dad drummer and a fantastic photographer.
Thank you. I might just have to circumvent their authority. I have to get all small in the camera here to say that, but because if I go out here, you don't see me doing that. But there's
I will say that I have actually found a considerable amount of valuable content on TikTok lately.
That's what I'm saying. And so
I was shocked. I really thought it was all like
there's some great stuff,
garbage and dance videos, but no.
now there is good stuff. I think we just lost probably like 90% of our chat room is like really TikTok, but
TikTok.
This wasn't on our list to talk about at all. Yeah. But I follow a couple different news sources on there, independent people that post great stuff, and then there are a ton of fantastic photographers doing neat stuff, and then there is this kind of group of local Seattle people that go on cool hikes that I'm just like, oh, that's cool. I'm putting that on my list for later.
That's cool.
The strength of TikTok, and some people might find this creepy, but the strength of it is the algorithm. After you spend some time with it, it starts to decide what you like best and feeds you that. Yeah. So there's no thinking. There's no like, hey, let me go see Seattle hikes right now. No, you just open it up, and then you got like 4 Seattle hikes in a row, and then you got a photographer posting something, and then you got a news story, and then you've got the lawyer stuck as a cat for a moment and things like that. So.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. But if anybody wants to see, I've put up a couple of TikToks, but if anybody wants to see them, I did link to it in the newsletter that went out yesterday at the very bottom. I just said, I'm on TikTok. You can go check it out. There's a couple of different things that go around. Like there's these, I guess they're called memes is how you describe them. And the one is, tell me you're a photographer without actually telling me you're a photographer. And so then people show like a pile of gear or like, have 16 different camera straps around their neck or something like that. I took that moment, and this is the first time I've ever done it, to show all of my camera bags together in one place.
Oh, that's cool.
And I have a few.
What about...
It took me like...
What about an empty wallet? Would that say I'm a...
Yes. See, that is very clever, and I would definitely thumb that up.
Yeah. You must be a photographer.
Come on, overrule those children's authority over you and be like, I'm on TikTok now, kids, deal with it.
It's happening tonight.
There are funny
I'll follow you guys.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, pretty soon we're just going to do this live on TikTok. Forget this YouTube stuff. I mean, it's not like I built my whole business on YouTube or anything. See you later. So,
it's great.
All right. Okay, let's actually get into the show. We now dive into the section of the show that is our favorite. I mentioned it already. You all have submitted images, you all being pen members. If you're watching this and you're not a pen member, again, photorec.tv/pen is the best way to find out more about that. And through your pictures submitted, we teach some Lightroom. And we share some tips and tricks. Sometimes we dabble in Photoshop, but lately, not so much. We're really trying to stick it to Lightroom. Yeah, I did mention, alternatives to Adobe. I feel like we kind of touch on this often, but I wanted to check in with you, David, about how your Capture One experience is going. Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about DxO because I've been back in that as I compare some noise reduction options.
Sure.
Did I said Adobe? Yeah, because also the other one is Photoshop. I mean, I think it's quite easy for people to move away from Lightroom, but I feel like moving away from Photoshop is much more difficult. Mm-hmm. But I might have found something for Mac users at least that seems very good and is the same price as just 2 months of a subscription to Adobe, and you own it. So.
I'm interested to hear about that.
We'll talk about that. Okay. And just a reminder, anybody watching the show for the first time or submitted images, we try to keep this segment just a little bit more tight, short and sweet than we used to, just to keep it flowing well. So you might not hear from all of us on all of these photos, but we do enjoy giving you all some feedback. So first up, we've got Sue Stevens, Rose at Night. And let's give a little bit more real estate here so we can take a good look at this.
Wow.
Yeah. Reminds me in some ways we had Jody's kind of cut out magnolia image last week as well. And you were titling it Rose at Night, and maybe you did photograph it at night with a little bit of light or something. I don't know. Or maybe you edited to look like that. Either way, I think me kind of not knowing for sure, that's good. It leaves me wondering. and it doesn't look clearly edited.
Yeah.
I mean, here's what I look for in a black and white is, do we have good texture and interesting elements that kind of grab our eye, and do we have good detail in the brighter white areas? And we do. We're not losing anything. If I hit the J key, no? Do I need to be in develop for that to work? J key.
I believe so.
Yeah, there we go. I can see that within the white, nothing turns red. I really like that. The blue is showing the black area, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Do you guys, either of you, have issues with the basically dark nothing surrounding this flower?
Well, a little bit. Only because I feel like the fact that it's completely black makes it feel a little cut out.
Okay.
Rather than having depth. But I just wonder if it's because maybe because it's so even, and I'm not sure how I would approach that. Maybe just coming in a little bit closer, or maybe keeping it from being such a kind of closed. Yeah, I feel like that's already moving toward the right direction. And that just feels a little less cut out to me, maybe because it's closer. But I'm really happy with the tonal range in the black and white on the petals.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
That's very nice. I will say that I notice, and you all probably, it's difficult on YouTube or through StreamYard to see this, but we do have a little hint of something showing up over there. I wonder if we just bring the blacks up for a second. What do we see? Yeah, so it feels mostly cut out or heavily edited because you don't get anything more except for two little spots when you bring that back up there. And I don't know if I don't have comments on, so I'm not sure if Sue is watching with any feedback. No. So yeah, and I think just kind of coming in a little bit as you suggested is good there, Tonya. But yeah, kudos to you, Sue, for really getting that exposure in there nicely.
Yeah, and it's great texture, and I love the black and white. So
yeah. All right, we got Eric Anderson, who usually is submitting very nice landscapes. So it's fun to see a photographer that we kind of feel like they have a niche shooting something that we haven't seen from them before.
Yeah, yeah.
And here's Tegan.
Cool.
Both of you are much more experienced portrait photographers than me. How do you feel about we have just a little bit of the top of the head gone? Is that okay? Would you have liked all of it?
I do that quite a bit. It's a very common thing in portraiture, and it seems so counterintuitive when you're editing that way. But I think when you look, it just depends on what the portrait is really trying to convey. I think you'll see a lot of advertisements where the head is cut off, and really where you see that a lot is in TV and movie production. Next time you watch any TV show, just anything, with people in it, just look how close they get in on people's faces. It's kind of unbelievable. They'll even cut chins off sometimes, which we don't recommend doing that in photography. But so it just depends. I think if you have the top of the head to incorporate, or if she was wearing her hair up in some interesting way that was really going to lend itself to that image, then maybe. But it doesn't really bother me. As much as you would maybe think something like that should bother us. So
yeah, okay, good.
I don't know.
Yeah, Tonya, any feedback in general on this portrait?
Well, I really love the way the light is hitting the background. I think, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I was thinking that if I had to put a visual presentation on this, that little black sliver on the edge would probably become a problem. Like you'd need to crop in just so that it ends with the light. I'm not a fan of visual presentation, but I'm entering things so often that I start to look at my edges like, how is that going to fall against another color? And I agree with David. I think that the crop on the head is fine. I certainly wouldn't come down lower. So I like that.
Yeah. The only other thing sorry, go ahead.
Nope. Go ahead, David.
Okay. Well, the only other thing I was going to point out just before we, get too deep into everything else is I feel like I love that you can see the eyes, you can see catch lights, you can see the color in the eyes, but I do feel like the rest of her face gets a little dark, and it could be remedied pretty easily with just dodging it a little bit. And you have to be kind of careful and sort of finesse that, but just to kind of brighten that up a little bit. That's probably what I would do first is just kind of brighten that face up a little bit more, and just work on the texture a little bit of the skin, but without losing the, you don't want to make somebody look plastic, but there's the cool thing is, and I've been saying this a lot lately, is all the elements are there to really fine tune this one. It's a beautiful image, a beautiful, beautiful subject. Again, eyes are lit, which is so important.
Yep.
The only last little thing I would say is she's kind of dead center, and we probably could lose a little of the side with that's all black, just to kind of bring it over a little bit.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah,
somewhere in there. Nice.
Yeah.
Good. The one last thing that I'm noticing here is I feel like the face skin color is a little bit more warm than down in the neck region. So you want to kind of work that to balance it a little bit more closely.
Yeah.
Nice shot though, Eric.
Yeah,
All
very
right,
beautiful.
Steve has another portrait.
Oh wow. All right.
I like the positioning of this, that she's framed between the instrument.
Yeah, I do too. A lot.
And we have a lot of headspace. He cropped in some already, but that allows completeness of the bow.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think I'm inclined to leave that.
Yeah, the bow kind of takes you up into that top portion of the image to where you almost don't have to worry as much about the rule of thirds with the eyes and all that. In my opinion, I think that's just. Sometimes it's easy to just want to apply the same rule to every photo, but you have to look at everything else that's going on, and
And Steve, I can see here I turned on the adjustment brush because I was going to go in. I'm going to turn it back off, but you have done quite a bit of individual adjusting. I was going to go in. I'd love to get a little bit more brightness, just beat the shadows back just a bit in that eye there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think that you've done a really nice job here. Anything else you want to add, Tonya?
I think just for future reference that if you can hit the background with a little bit of light, it would just be nice to give her a little separation. But I don't know that can be done here in editing easily.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You could do an extreme
digital
makeover to the background, but that's not necessary.
Yeah. Digital Photo Mentor in chat. Hi. Would love to see a little bit more space above and around the bow. It does come very close.
Yes, it
to
does.
That edge. I agree with that. I think that, and of course, that would be very easy to do with this very basically solid color background. I want to say, as I'm looking at this, I love the way that I don't know the name of the parts of the bow, but the way that the string and the actual wooden piece both have that catch of light that just runs up the side of them.
Yes.
And I think that's very nice. Almost a little too strong, and it pulls me away a little bit, but that is a really cool piece to this image, I think.
Yeah, and essential, because if it was in shadow, it just you would lose some of that detail. So
Yep. Well said. All right, thanks, Steve. Roger Hunt, he's got you say it's the unedited raw, but I am just looking at a JPEG here, Roger. So I don't know if, but I think this is the unedited version, basically straight out of camera. Maybe all you did was convert it to JPEG. And then you did some edits to it, and you did post this in Facebook and got some feedback on it, so our community group. And I think there was somebody in the group, I don't remember now, who suggested making it a little bit brighter, a little bit more rich. And at first glance, especially when I go from the raw to this, it might be too much.
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah?
I think it's almost like a little too punchy and well, I don't know, and it may be because the thing about the sort of raw or the less edited or unedited version was that it almost it didn't have a vignette, but all of that stuff in the foreground just wasn't as bright as what's kind of in the background, and I felt like that was actually helping the photo. When you brighten it all up too much, it gets, I don't know. There's just like a balance there. It can almost look a little bit like an HDR image. You know, it's like everything is exposed perfectly, and which is not really how our eyes see it, nor how the camera sees it. So you kind of, I think, maybe just pushed it a little too hard there.
Yeah, yeah.
I think too that the way he has the foreground framing almost works as a vignette, so you almost want that to be a little bit darker.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I do really like the way he worked the landscape on the inside of the frame there. And I did talk to him a little bit about this one on Facebook, and I think I would just kind of fill in Photoshop some of the like foliage at the top and really make that a much stronger framed area.
Yeah, that's a good call. I probably would be doing that too, and that especially that left third little gap up there, probably fill some stuff in.
And take some time. These branches, I mean, these are fine. They're kind of nice, clean branches, but then over here we get a little messy. And if we could fix that up a little bit there.
Yeah,
I agree.
If we come in a little bit more, do we?
I was wondering the same.
Somewhere in this vicinity, I think. I felt like that was a little too tight because I don't love the way some of this grass gets cut off. But I feel like we don't have any frame down there, and coming up a little bit looks nice.
I like it. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Roger. Roger's another one who usually we see fantastic bird pictures from, so it's nice to see you outside your comfort zone a little bit. Now we've moved on to Colleen's Zion shot, and it might look familiar if you've seen a couple of these shows, because there were a couple of people that regularly submit who went on this workshop, and we did have a lovely, lovely evening. And Colleen, I think you've got a nice shot here.
Wow. Is that oil or acrylic? Because that doesn't. It's like a painting. It's incredible.
It does look like a painting. You know, it's interesting. So I have this on two screens in front of me. I have it, on the MacBook Air that we're working from, and then I'm over here on my iMac. I can see the StreamYard view. It's a bit darker on the StreamYard view.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that just my monitor? Nope. It is just. It's coming through a little bit darker. So that's always
a
challenge as we talk about these things. But I mean, I think I'd like to see a little bit more detail down in the shadows. I could bring this up a bit. Some of that green starts to get a little too punchy, so you be careful about that. You can come down into your kind of HSL slider vicinity and bring the green saturation down a little bit. Or you could play with, see if you wash it out a little bit or darken it. So kind of trying to battle bringing up overall shadows, which is lots of the green, but without making the green look too cuckoo. Gosh, I think the sky is very, very nice, but if you wanted to brush on a little bit of de-hazing, so going negative and negative clarity, to just kind of take that idea that David Carr said, what did you paint this with? And we're losing some of our colors here, so I'll get those back in a second, but just really soften that sky up a bit even more.
It's nice.
That's a beautiful sky, and I'm guessing that it's original to that. I mean, I feel like
we had a gorgeous sunset that night, so my memory is that is accurate.
Yeah, it looks flawless, so I assume so.
Colleen is saying it's way brighter on her screen, and this is one of the biggest challenges. How bright your screen will get, and a lot of times we leave and forget we just have our screens on full 100% brightness.
Right.
And that can really bite us when we go to print, because our prints aren't backlit, but our screens are. So you really do need to watch that. That was a real sky. Cool.
One other thing I just wanted to point out, on the bottom, at the bottom, towards the left, there's kind of some brighter bushes or something, like right in there. And I don't know, just looking at it small, like that's probably something I would just sort of get rid of, just because it kind of draws my eyes away from the rest of the action. I think just looking for any little details like that, whether it's a highlight or a shadow, something dark or bright, just like squint and kind of clean up a few of those little spots, because it'll really help the whole image to really be congruent,
Yep.
I love the colors in the water.
Yes.
In this.
Yeah. Got a little,
really beautiful.
Fun green.
It's fantastic.
Nice. Thank you, Colleen. All right, moving on. We've got Mike's. Nice.
That looks more like my weather.
But not mountains like that, right? You have some mountains
No.
in Pennsylvania. But
We
not
have
so
some
much.
mountains. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. I love, this is the classic idea of the curve of the road leading our eye up to those distant mountains.
Right.
What do we think about coming in a little bit
Yeah.
on that side? Because we see that it's kind of a pull off there. And I don't know. I want the kind of the idea of the mystery of just this curve.
Yeah.
Are we getting? Yeah.
I think that's good. I think
Somewhere
you could
there.
come down from the top maybe a little bit too. I don't know.
Yeah, I keep getting stuck on that like one little pine tree up there.
Yes. Good call. Good call. So should we come around here somewhere?
Yeah, maybe so. Kind of gives it a standard sort of 2x3 format, and
Yep. Yep.
yeah,
This has really nice layers to it.
it does.
Tell me what you mean by that, Tonya.
Well, I just feel
nice.
like we have like the road layer and then the boulder kind of there in the foreground and then the tree line and then the darker mountains and then the lighter, like it's interesting because I don't feel like in some landscapes there's so much depth, but this one just feels more layered to me. So it has like a different appeal. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but it doesn't strike me as having a ton of depth, and maybe that's because I feel like we're sitting on the road. But I just think that the layers are really intriguing in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious what this would look like as a black and white.
Let's try. While Tanya was talking real quick, I just brushed on a little dehaze in the direction we usually use at this time, just to kind of bring out a little bit more of that texture in the sky, and a black and white.
Yeah, I mean, it might. Sometimes when you just click black and white in Lightroom, it doesn't give you the full idea, but it gives you an idea of like, would this work if I tweaked it a little? And I don't know that it's really doing much for me because
Here's the pro of the black and white I love is immediately I'm drawn to the cool texture in the rock and the snow on the left. I feel like that becomes its own picture.
yeah,
But what I lost is that layer of trees and then mountains that Tanya was referencing.
that's right. That's
They
right.
now seem to kind of blend together a little bit more. So yeah, but cool. And Mike, I don't know if you have any individual just black and white shots of that snow on those rocks there. Could be very cool as well. Nice, thanks. Brian Scanlon went out shooting on the Super Bowl, and he posted this in our group. And
Well, that was better than watching the Super Bowl.
I'm gonna go with that.
yeah.
Man, the curves in this are fantastic.
Yeah.
This is very nice.
I
Very
love this.
nice shot.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is the Mount Tamalpais region. It's just north of San Francisco up in the hills, and it's just such a cool place. I've
gorgeous.
mostly only seen it when the grasses are kind of dry and brown, which is pretty, but you've got these little bit more of the greens in them. It's really
Yeah,
nice.
I mean, there's a lot of beautiful color there.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering if the yellows in that sky are just a bit too blown out, And I don't know with the blue mist over the mountains, like I love that, but I'm wondering if there's some color tweaking that could be done with all the different colors to like bring it all together a little bit more. Does that make sense?
To try to bring the blues in here in line with how the yellows are.
Well, yeah, just kind of like color theory thing. Like, I'm not trying to take away from it because it's a gorgeous image, but it's so gorgeous that I just want to make it as perfect as it can be, So I wonder if like pulling the yellow back a little bit, like the saturation of yellow, just a touch, or the hue of the yellow, something that where all the colors flow a little bit. Because for me, the foreground, the green is gorgeous. The sky is gorgeous. The blue mist is gorgeous. But for some reason, I think between those shades of each of those colors, I'm wondering if it just could be tweaked a little bit to I don't know if I'm making sense, but
No, you are. I came into this tool because to the crop tool one, we could see Brian's original crop here, which I think it was a good call. And look at this thoughtfulness of like deciding to end this here, very nice, and I think also where you brought it in over here. But I wonder, I wanted to come down past that little bit of that brighter spot.
Yeah.
And we have a little bit more of that kind of panorama feel. And I see, was it Gareth? Yeah, we actually have a couple people asking about more of a pano look in here. We could come down even a little bit more to get towards that pano look. Let's look at that for a moment.
It's not bad.
Not bad. Not bad.
I do.
And again,
I do agree
ahead.
with the yellows. I feel like the yellows get a little
let's
punchy
go.
up there.
Yeah, yeah. So if we come in here and maybe just bring the luminance of the yellows down a little bit, and maybe the saturation down a little bit.
Yeah, and then maybe that hue, yeah, kind of
Yeah. What if we
warm it up
push
a touch?
towards-
Yeah, it starts to.
Yeah.
You really have to play around with that stuff, but I think there's a sweet spot you can find where everything's flowing nicely.
Yeah.
And I think that the mist might get a touch cyan for me, but I do overall like that it has that much vibrance.
Yeah.
But man, the S curves in this are like hypnotic.
Yeah.
The composition was really well done.
I'm just curious for a second. Most of our negative comments were really just around colors feeling a little off. What is this? Well, we have, let's hit reset. Can I hit reset and then black and white? Do we get that? Yeah, there we go. Then let's come down to that kind of pano crop. Just real quick.
Yeah, that's not bad, man. It's like, because the cool thing with this image is like, if you go color, you have great colors to work with. If you go black and white, you have amazing lines and textures to work with. So,
Cool, Brian. You got a lot there.
yeah, that's
Thanks for
awesome.
sharing. All right, Kevin Walk spent the weekend up in the snowy mountains of California. And he shot this photo, which, we talk about Milky Way. Milky Way typically is most exciting because you get the galactic core for Northern Hemisphere folks from about, I don't know, March-ish to October-ish. But you can shoot it in the middle of winter. You just don't have as much to shoot. But we still have some Milky Way coming up through the trees there. So Kevin, good job in finding that and kind of framing it between these trees here. But what pulls my eye away is that bright spot from, I think, cabin light or some light
Yeah.
is being thrown in that corner. And we can crop some. I wonder what happens if we come up there. It feels a little tight to me, especially with that one kind of lit tree on the right. So, I don't know. We could also try putting some local area adjustment across the bottom and just bringing highlights down and maybe even overall exposure down
Yeah.
and trying to get it kind of desaturated a little bit because we have different colors, kind of different color lights competing. We have a kind of a warmer tone coming in through there. So something like that. And bring exposure down even a little bit more.
That might be something too where I would take it into Photoshop and actually do some like reproduction work. Sometimes not necessarily cloning, but maybe copying a different part of the road and extending it and kind of using the warp tool to give it the right curve so it doesn't look like a different part of the road. So I think maybe that might be a better way to fix that area
Yeah.
if you don't want to crop it.
Yeah. And I like Teresa's comment here in chat. I'd like to see a little more detail in the bottom middle. So I think you're talking of that road or the snowy, snowmobile track. I think it would
Definitely.
be interesting to see a little bit more in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, a pop over to Photoshop would be great there, Kevin. Okay.
Definitely.
We're going to finish up with Robert Forehand's shot.
Wow.
Some old place with some broken castles, just castles. That's all.
This almost looks like it was light painted,
Yeah.
which it's a very neat effect.
Yeah. I'm almost convinced that I'm almost 100% convinced that this is some kind of an HDR
Yeah.
image.
Yeah.
But
feel
a
like
very
this
well
was-
done one.
Yeah, I feel like this was in pretty deep shadow, and either a separate exposure, like you said, David, or something brought it up. Do we need as much? So in the foreground, let me say what I love about this image is I love the texture, and kind of back to Tonya referencing the layers in the mountain image we saw a few moments ago. This has those layers with this kind of foreground ancient rock wall, and then there's another rock wall, and then there's a castle ruins up on the hill. Classic. Do we need as much of this? Oh, and also it's got these little pink flowers that I really like.
It's a nice touch.
Do we need as much as that as we have? Are we okay if we kind of come in a little tighter like that?
Yes, I like that
I
better.
do too.
Yeah.
And then
I do think the corners get a little too dark with the vignette.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. So
And it's so hard for me to see on this. Like the texture in the stone might be a little crispy, but I do like that he pulled that out. I wouldn't go too far away from where he was with that. But man, I really want to shoot there.
Yeah, it is a cool spot.
With a costume.
Yeah, I know. TikTok, take your show on the road.
Right.
I'll be right there.
This is the other thing I think that was cluing us all in until a little funny business going on here. This feels a little brushed or a little brightened more than it would have been in kind of a natural shot, but very, very cool and nice. All right, we're coming back to us.
I'm glad that you warned me because I'm always like,
oh. And now let me all know that if his voice sounded funny, he was wearing that the entire time. I don't know what this weirdo is doing, but
I'm not a cat.
What does the fox say?
I'm not a cat.
Turn the filter off. Do you have a young child there that knows how to use Zoom? That was great. Why is that sitting next to you?
It always is.
It always is. And this is the first time you brought it out? Oh my gosh. So many more people could be watching the show right now. So.
That's a large cat head, though. I'm sorry. That was a little bit obnoxious.
I thought it was a fox.
It is a fox, right? I'm not a fox.
Right, it's a fox.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I said I'm not a cat. So
it's
anyway,
very cute.
I had to. It was just such a funny meme going around that or meme, whatever it is.
I like it.
All right.
I like it. All right, let's talk hard drive failure rates. I don't know. Everybody in chat was asking for that, right? Did I miss all those messages where they're like, give us those hard drive failure rates? I want to show this.
I was hoping that you just made a spreadsheet for us.
No, but Backblaze did. Look, I just want to talk about this for a second.
No, it's good because I'm not joking. I've literally been a little bit in a panic mode about my hard drives today. So it's actually fitting. Okay. So
let me share this screen over here. And then we'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Is it right here? Y'all see that? This is Steve Pressman sent this to me a couple weeks ago, and I thought this was hilarious. He's uploading the files to the cloud. And here's why I came back to it is because this is a great excuse to just remind people that they should be backing up. And one of their backups should be off-site, whether it's a hard drive that you use every once in a while and then take over to a friend's house or a relative's house or upload to the cloud, hopefully in a more effective manner than slingshotting cabinets into the sky. That's important. But here's what grabbed my attention as I was looking at this Backblaze article that they sent out. And I am a big fan of Backblaze for off-site cloud backup. But what I was thinking about looking at this is when I use cloud storage, I don't really think that they're just using hard drives too. I don't know what I think. It's just like, oh yeah, that's on their servers and the servers are in the cloud.
Yeah.
But of course, they're just putting it on hard drives like we are. They're just doing it on more hard drives and in ways that it's backed up on their site as well. But I mean, look at these drive counts. They have 18,000 4 terabyte drives. They have 23,000 12 terabyte drives. they have 21,014 terabyte drives.
Amazing.
And this was skipping over a lot of the different drives and the different times. And basically, they've got some Seagates, they got some Toshibas, they have some Western Digitals, and you can look over here. And again, just a reminder, if you haven't watched the show in a while, the show notes are linked right down below this video. You can get to all of these articles that we're talking about. And we're just going to spend a moment here. You go over here and you can see these hard drive failure numbers, but more importantly is the annualized failure rate. Basically, over a year, how often is this kind of drive failing? And you could see something like this Seagate 18 terabyte is at a 12%, but they only have implemented 60 of those.
Okay.
So just 2 have failed, and that's given them that percentage. There's another chart down here where, here it is, the confidence interval. Basically, how many drives they have to give you an idea is if that failure rate is likely accurate or skewed because they have a very small number. And everything, here's the peace of mind, David Carr.
Okay.
Everything is pretty ridiculously low as far as failure rates.
Yeah, I figure.
We seem to be in a pretty good sweet spot right now. A couple of takeaways from this, because nobody in chat actually asked for this. I just forced it on you all because I like a little bit of this data. The takeaways are that these giant drives seem to be just as good as the older, smaller drives. I know there's been some concern, like, gosh, buying 12 terabytes now, is that too much? But the technology is there. That they seem to be working very, very well. And they're getting great results from their smaller drives too. And somebody down below is like, okay, in the chat, they're like, or the comments are like, so, why is everything going so well? And they said, well, we think the technology has reached a point where these big drives have really good quality control. Mm-hmm. And the older, smaller drives, if they haven't failed by now, they're never going to fail, basically. Paraphrasing.
Wow. Okay.
So
interesting. Yeah.
This says to me, if you've been waiting and saying, I'm not sure if I can buy a big drive yet, that you can. And these guys look good.
That's interesting. Well, so I think it was a few weeks ago, you asked me about if I was using Backblaze, and I had switched to something else. And I am back to the Blaze.
Are you?
But which means I'm having to start the backup over again, which is awful. But I just couldn't. I don't know. I just was like, I'm going to try something else. The grass was not greener on the other side. But so I'm doing that. But I also, I've complained in the past about my iMac having some glitches, and it's a fairly new, and it's the iMac Pro. It's loaded with power and RAM, and it was still kind of glitchy. Every now and then, like Final Cut Pro, when I would work on videos, would just do weird things, and Photoshop would do weird things. And I realize that's just part of how things happen, and no matter what computer you have, there are going to be issues. But it seemed like it was happening a little too much. So I backed everything up. I already had a Time Machine backup. I have a 16 terabyte Time Machine backup drive, and I had everything backed up. But I also made a full on went through every file and created my own individual backups of things on that drive. Just because what I wanted to do was rebuild the whole computer, basically just re-download the apps, I didn't want to do anything completely fresh, because sometimes little weird files get corrupted and then you can't find out which ones they are. So I did all that. It was a pain. My computer's running beautifully now. It's running so well, but nothing is really backed up. So I'm actually, as of this morning, it is backed up. I'm back to Time Machine. But I've only got one backup of my photos right now, and so Backblaze is doing its thing. But I was in a little bit of a panic about that this morning. Like, what if I did something wrong and I lose everything, or what? It's just like a little bit of a cold sweat. So, but I'll be back.
Yeah.
I felt so confident when I had 3 copies of everything. But.
I back up in every location because I go back and forth between home and 2 offices, and I have a hard drive at each one in addition to a cloud-based, and the one in my school office just went to read only the other day. When I plugged it in to start backing up, and it just said like, oh, it's read only now. So I was like, great.
Uh-oh. I wonder what happened.
I have no idea. So I'll just
that is frustrating.
put that to the side and start with the new one. That's how I handle technology. Like, okay, fine.
That's right.
Battery
That's it.
died in my
That's
camera. Time to get a new camera.
Right.
working professionals, you know, who aren't hard drive experts. Just it's not any fun trying to make that stuff work.
If I didn't have 2 other hard drives with everything backed up, I probably would spend more time on that. But
Yeah.
That's exactly why. Even with failure rates as low as they are, it is just a matter of time to a drive either does fail on you, or not saying one of you, but somebody screws up. You screw up and accidentally delete or drop a drive. So, David McKay likes to say it's just not a matter of if, but when you're going to lose data. And having backups just gives you that nice peace of mind.
Well, and Backblaze is great just because it's just, you're not even thinking about it. It just does its thing, and once you get that initial backup, I love just knowing that I don't have to think about this.
Yeah, it does take some time. Okay, I got a quick beware story. So Indiegogo is kind of like a Kickstarter relative, right? Kickstarter, of course, a lot of companies use to fund new products. Sometimes it's a new company, sometimes it's an existing company. Peak Design is a great example of somebody who uses Kickstarter often. And there's definitely some negative opinions of that. If it's an established company, should it really be using these kind of crowdfunding platforms? But, it's up to us whether or not we support them.
Sure.
I was poking around and this weekend, and I saw on Indiegogo a hub, which I've talked. Let me move it over here. Look at my dongle. You call it a hub, call it a dongle, whatever you want. Look at that mess on my. Steve Jobs is rolling over in his grave right now.
Yeah, I think he probably is.
So for a clean Mac to have something like that on it. But I need that to run the show. I also I am very, very happy with this Mac. But there was a version of that I just showed you that had all those ports, but it was also like we have a 4 terabyte SSD in there. And we are basically the same cost as like one of these SSDs that I use around here. I was like, hey, this sounds pretty good. And a lot of comments, a lot of people backing, only 13 days left. I was like, all right. But I went off to some other tabs. I kind of got distracted, as I often do. I was like, I don't really need that right now. So it's going to kind of put that in the back of my mind. And then I was later browsing Facebook. And of course, once you've touched something somewhere on the internet, you're going to get a million ads for it. So I started to get these ads for that device on Facebook. And I went to look at the comments. And the first couple of comments were like, hey, you guys got kicked off Kickstarter. Now you're trying Indiegogo. How's that going for you? And I was like, oh, why'd they get kicked off Kickstarter? Well, it's because it's basically a fraud. Short story. And Reddit has a bit of this information. Let me share this with you all here. Let's see. They had this device, and they were using Kickstarter's name as part of the device. So that's actually why Kickstarter said, hey, you're not allowed to do this. We're kicking you off. But they also were one of those companies that has the product there, but is continually delaying the release. And then they were caught where somebody asked a question, they answered, and then the company pretending to be this person again, which is now clear was the company in the first place, are like, oh, your company is the best, it's the greatest company. This is you guys. It's just embarrassing. And then you start to read the comments on Indiegogo, and you realize that they have done the same thing. They've kept extending out the deadline for how long they're going to collect money before they'll start shipping. And it's been like a week away for several months from that. So I know I've even shared Think Tank, their last camera bag that I love, the Rotation 180. They used Indiegogo for that. And they were delayed by about, people just started getting their bags this week. They were supposed to ship them in mid-November. So December, January, 2.5 months-ish. And there was, I think, some COVID issues there with
Sure.
international shipping and manufacturing. So I'll give them a little bit of a pass, but I'll just use this as a warning. If you see something cool on Indiegogo, I wouldn't give them your money unless you've got piles of extra money sitting around, because it just seems so often that it doesn't work out.
I think we already established that we're photographers.
Yeah. All that extra photography money you've got.
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's disappointing. And when you look closely at it, you realize that it is actually just a picture from another company's hub that they are saying is our hub plus SSD.
Yeah.
And then you just realize it.
I think you really have to be careful about purchasing stuff online overall for those reasons. Like, I buy a lot of newborn props online, and you have to be really careful to make sure that whoever is selling that prop is using an image that they're allowed to use, because sometimes they have something very similar and they just are stealing somebody else's image with a similar product. So
That's a good point.
I mean, there's just lots of the little tiny things that seem decent. I actually almost ordered a whole bunch of clothing for my maternity wardrobe from a site that all of a sudden I realized, like, this site just was opened a month ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't purchase through them. I feel like I would never have seen a single piece. So
Most likely not.
Yeah. I mean, it's always possible that they are just new, but that's definitely a red flag. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I just wanted to put that warning out there.
That's good.
And, I
Good to
think,
know.
especially with Kickstarter and Indiegogo, it is a bit of a gamble. Kickstarter is usually good about giving you your money back. Indiegogo, I think, is much more hit or miss if the products don't come to market. They don't have quite the same kind of safety features in place. So keep that in mind. All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about Sony a7 IV, which when the A1 came out, everybody was like, yeah, okay, $6,500 camera, that's fairly niche. How about that Sony a7 IV, which is going to replace, obviously, the a7 III, which has been a very well-received, well-loved camera. And here's what's interesting. So Sony Alpha Rumors guy and got specs about the A1 months ago that he didn't quite believe, but now that they were basically accurate, that rumor person, also gave them specs about the Sony a7 IV. So now he feels like they're a little bit more of an accurate rumor spec leaker. Which I'll just say this is always interesting. Most of the time when I have a call with Sony and a lot of other companies that before they release a product, it's a group call. There's a bunch of us on the call getting presented to about this. The other day I had a one-on-one call for a unreleased product, and I always kind of wonder, when it's one-on-one, do they sneak in a little bit of data that's different just to see leaks out there? Like, if they say, oh, this is capable of 62.1 megapixels, and then a day later on the rumor it shows up 62.1 megapixels, and they're like, Toby leaked that because that's what we told him, but it's actually 59.99.
Okay.
I mean, I keep my mouth shut, but I always wonder.
No, that's an interesting theory.
Yeah. Okay. So it should be a 30 to 32 megapixel sensor. The EVF is going to have 3.6 million dots, not the 5.7 that we see in the higher end Sonys. LCD is going to be on the cheap side, which is probably, they're going to continue to recycle that back LCD that they've been using, which is only 1.4. A little disappointing. Video is going to be 4K 60. It'll have the new menus, and it'll be about $24.99, which is where the R6 is sitting. These specs seem pretty exciting.
Yeah.
No real word on timing here in this post, but what I've heard from other posts is that summer-ish. So we could be waiting a bit still for this, but I think that this camera is going to do very, very well. And this is where I think, we have this competition. The Z6 II is priced very, very well and does excellent and has 4K. We've got the R6, which is priced at this amount, And it is only 20 megapixels, but is a fantastic camera with focusing system. So we've got a nice run here of really good, solid cameras, and I think that's good for all of us.
That 30 to 32 megapixel size. I mean, I don't know of a lot of cameras that have, a resolution in that range there. It's usually around 24 to 25, or then it gets up into like closer to 50, 46, 47. So, and, we all know that like resolution it can be way overrated. And so that seems like a really sweet spot for a lot of photographers. It's not, by no means is that like small resolution. It's also not ridiculously large to where it's going to take forever to do anything. So,
and all the hard drive space.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Very good. Yeah. So cool. I like that. And I'm excited for that camera to come out. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Adobe Alternatives. David Carr wanted to check in with you. You posted towards the beginning of the year that you were going to experiment with Capture One.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Well, it's funny you ask, because I had a little revelation today, that I had to get into Lightroom to do some stuff today, and I haven't used Lightroom a whole lot. I mean, I still have it, and I still have a lot of photos that's where they are, and so sometimes I have to go pull from there. But I had to do I had to use Lightroom today for something, and I just felt so at home, just like all my shortcuts, and like I don't have to think, and it's all just flowing. And I will say the grass it can be greener or it can seem greener on the other side. It's not always. There are some real strong points to Capture One. There are some real strong points to Lightroom. There are some things I'm surprised that Capture One's not doing as well as I thought it would do. Overall, I love it. I love the look, the feel. I love the speed, the way the images look in Capture One. It's hard to. I think I said this last time. It's hard to explain, but they just look really crisp and really. I don't know. It's like when you go from Lightroom into Photoshop. I always notice a difference. I feel like in Photoshop everything is sharper and cleaner, and it's not that it's not sharp in Lightroom, but it's just this thing that I perceive, and I feel like Capture One is presenting my images that way. But I get frustrated with Capture One still, and I'm still new with it, but I get frustrated trying to navigate to find certain photos if I haven't cataloged stuff very well or created collections. And then the exporting process is still feeling a little clunky to me. And some of that's just my own experience. But overall, I mean, it's a great piece of software. But it's not going to like revolutionize your editing experience. If you're still kind of new to editing, either way, you're gonna. There's a lot to learn, and Lightroom is no slouch. It does amazing things, and I will say, since reworking my computer and sort of freshening it up, when I have dove into Lightroom, it does feel like it's a little snappier, and so I don't know. And I kind of said it when I made this leap into Capture One that I reserve the right to go back on my word, and I may just do that, but I don't know. I've been attempting to do a video kind of just giving my basic rundowns, a basic rundown of likes and dislikes. I haven't nailed the video yet. So
speaking of videos, David Carr, we didn't mention this at the beginning. I mentioned your Instagram, but you do have a YouTube channel, and I haven't got a chance to watch it yet, but it looked like you got out a fantastic interview with a local area photographer talking a bit about motivation and demotivation. Can you take a moment and plug that, please?
Yeah. So it's just about a 30-minute video, just a discussion I had. It's really my podcast, the David Carr podcast. I just decided, you know what? I think I might just video this along with the recording, so people can go to my podcast and just listen in the car or wherever. But you can kind of just watch. Her name's Marissa Schmidt. She's my assistant on a lot of shoots, and then when I shoot weddings, a lot of times she is my second shooter, and so she's a dear friend of the family, and we were both just sort of being honest about like how unmotivated we were last year with COVID and everything happening, and then also just the expression believing in yourself, which to me is somewhat of a cheesy expression, and it's been so overused. But I was like, what if we really broke that down and tried to figure out, is there something to that, like believing in yourself? And of course there is. And how do you foster that belief in yourself? And what is it that hinders you believing in yourself? So we just kind of discussed that. And I've had a good response so far. People seem really encouraged by it. So
good. Yep. You can get to that through your Instagram. And then, of course, linked below this video is David Carr's YouTube channel and a link to the podcast, both of those. So it's in my podcast app, and it's queued up to listen to.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Moments. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm halfway through.
Oh, wow. Cool. Well, I edited it a lot. I mean, when you sit down to have a discussion, it can linger and you get into stuff. You're like, we don't need to talk about that.
Well, I didn't pause because I was bored. I just got interrupted and didn't get back to it. But
no, that's okay.
That is a topic that speaks to me. So
yeah. Well, and we didn't I don't think we broke any new ground in that discussion, but I think hopefully if you imagine yourself sitting there, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Or yeah, that's how I feel. Or, just trying to identify with where a lot of photographers are. And it's not just professional photographers, even hobbyists and people who are just you still have to have a belief that you can do it and that you're what you're doing is working or it's getting there. And so.
Absolutely. I've been back and forth kind of working on building a mentorship with a photographer who has been very frustrated lately. She's fairly new and just feeling like her pictures are just really crummy and kind of trying to figure that out. And so, spoiler, everybody can do this. Everybody can, but it's just kind of taking that time. So that's great. I wanted to make sure we shouted that out. But back to this discussion. So I hear you about Lightroom just being so comfortable. And I also have to say, using it on this Air, even though it's not silicon native, has been running really, really well for me.
That's good.
But the other day, so here's kind of what brought up this discussion to talk a little bit more about than we usually do. The other day, I realized I was paying for the full suite of Adobe stuff, and I don't need to do that anymore. Mostly because I realized I really like Acrobat for when I need to sign things, but now I realize that I can sign stuff in preview. I don't know how long that's been there, but for the last 8 years I've been paying Adobe whatever the full amount is for the full suite, and I took it down to just Photoshop and Lightroom. And here's the thing we always talk about. So let's say you switch to Capture One, but we even reference this. It's very hard to move away from Photoshop, I think.
Oh yes.
I don't even want to.
Yeah. I mean, you again, folks should take a look at Tonya's. You use your some of your images rely heavily on compositing, and Photoshop is a fantastic tool for that. But I was curious. I was looking around on the Mac. You have Affinity Photo and Pixelmator, and so the other day I picked up Pixelmator. I mean, it's which one did I get? I actually got Affinity Photo, and it hides behind my little screen sharing thing, so I can't get it out, I think. It's $25, and the first thing I did was open up my Epic Print Seattle. That's kind of my test bed. It's a 6 gigabyte, 18,000 by 7,000 or something like that. A file, and it opened up instantly. I could zoom in and out. I did some cloning. I just removed a couple of distant buildings, and it all seemed as capable as Photoshop. Now, for someone like me, where that's a lot of what I do, most of it does seem like one of these affordable programs could be a strong alternative.
So that's not subscription based, you said?
Nope.
Okay.
That's a Mac program that just is a buy once and you got it for life. There are upgrades from time to time that are going to do better things, and then you'll have to pay some kind of discounted cost.
You didn't get it off Indiegogo, right? It's
I did not get this off Indiegogo. No.
I do like knowing that though, because I teach graphic design at the high school level, and not all of these kids we use Photoshop Elements because you can purchase that outright, and that makes more sense for a student who may not want to be roped into a subscription at this age. But so it's nice to know about programs like that for some of my students as well. I mean, not to say that it's not for a professional level, because I don't have any basis for making that evaluation. But I know for me that I'm pretty stuck in Photoshop. And I feel like I'm well versed in Photoshop, and I'm still figuring things. I still don't know everything that program can do.
It's a bottomless pit. There's so much stuff there, and
So,
Well,
but
and
I will say every time I keep trying to get down to the basic package for Photoshop as well, because I had added on like Premiere and different things like that a while back. And every time I call to do that, they just give me 3 more months free. Like, don't cancel it. We'll give you 3 months free. And I think I'm on like month 6 of not paying for Photoshop because I keep just trying to downgrade.
there you go. You heard it here.
Okay, fine. I just want to go to the smaller package.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm just going to share the screen for just a moment. I will say that the interface seems a little bit more childish than Photoshop for sure. But again, this is a gigantic image, and it just responds very well in here.
Wow.
I love this image because it's great for detail. Detail. But what I did the other day, I didn't save it, but I cloned out both of these buildings, and it did a very good job fairly quickly. That was the full extent of my testing so far. So, I might find some other deal breakers, but I will be trying to use this more often in the future just to kind of get an idea of how it works. But the other piece that I think is really difficult and hard to move away from Lightroom for me is the organization.
Yes.
Because I think that library of photos and the categorization and the star ratings that I've done over the years really is nice. I don't think there's strong alternatives, though I have been looking more at DxO. Let's switch over to it. DxO Photo Lab, which has very similar look and feel to Lightroom, I think, in a lot of ways, as an alternative as well. But DxO Photo Lab, and this is one of the reasons I've been looking at it, is I just put out the video about topaz noise reduction being great. I'm really impressed with it. And a couple of comments in there are like, I think DxO Deep Prime noise reduction is better. You are comparing a $200 program. That is what you need to spend to get the full version of DxO Photo Lab with the Deep Prime noise reduction versus Topaz on sale right now at $50. And in all of my testing, Topaz is better for noise reduction. But that's all that Topaz does, that denoise program. They have other programs, but you have to buy them all separate.
Yeah.
Whereas this kind of all comes together. But it is starting to get kind of expensive. And at $200, that is a one-time purchase that you'll have for however long until you decide you want to upgrade to their, when they come out with PhotoLab 5.
Yeah.
Versus $10. How many, what is that? That's like 18 months-ish. Am I doing bad math there? 10 times 18? No, like 20 months.
Yeah.
It's about 20 months worth of Lightroom.
Yeah.
So
I'll say this from really giving it a go with Capture One, and again, I'm not giving up on it, but I think this is it finally really hit me just this week. Wow, I mean, when Lightroom is working great, I mean, there's a reason why it's kind of been the industry standard for that type of organizational and kind of general editing, anything you're not going to do in Photoshop. There are just some times where I'm working in Capture One, and I'm already really familiar. It did not take me that long to learn it. You could, and Toby, you're quick with that stuff. You actually would probably pick it up very quickly. Like, oh, I know where to do. I know what to hit here. But the time it's taking me to work on a photo, and some of this is muscle memory and just kind of getting familiar. But when I was working in Lightroom today, I was like, I mean, I don't have to think. It's just, and everything's great. And it was getting me to the same place that I would get with Capture One. And there are a couple things, and I'll do this when I do a little rundown or kind of a review. There are a couple things that are like, this is frustrating. Why is it like this, And some of that has to do with like the grid view. Like a lot of times I'll hit the G key and bring up a grid view to see all my photos in a collection or a catalog or in a date or whatever I'm using to categorize that. It's just not that easy to get to the grid view. And I use that all the time. And so now it's like, I got to go through the motions to get to it. So it's things like that add up that make me go, ugh,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm there with you too. Yeah. And Daniel's saying we're forgetting about On One Photo Raw. Yeah, I'm not forgetting about it, but every time somebody mentions it and I go, I'm sorry, the interface feels childish and the raw engine feels several steps behind these other guys. Maybe I should give it. That was the last time I tried it was about a year ago, I think. So maybe I should look again, Daniela. But that was my last thing. And there are free options that you can kind of cobble together if you're willing. I recognize not everybody can spend $10 a month, but then at the same time, $10 a month if you are doing this often isn't that bad when we start to compare and see how much a one-time purchase of a program that's competitive is. And Capture One is up there as well. They have both the subscription model and that one-time purchase as well.
Yeah,
You
it's
can
really
save
not
a
that
little.
bad.
Yeah, you can save a little if you go with just the camera-specific version of the Capture One. But I don't know. Okay, we got one more story to talk about before we wrap up, and that's the importance of gear insurance. I don't know, Tonya and David, did you hear the story of the photographers, the real estate photographers left to shoot in San Francisco, and they were actually backed up in traffic, getting onto the highway when a car pulled up next to them. Guys jumped out, smashed their back window, grabbed their bag, and jumped off and drove off.
Gosh.
$7,000 worth of camera gear, they estimate, which that sounds very reasonable to me for somebody doing a real estate shoot.
yeah.
You add up a camera or couple lenses, and boom, you're right there, tripod.
Especially if you're Steve and you have a Hasselblad.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't put it in the camera bag. When he's done, he just slips it in his little internal holster and cuddles it.
Yeah. That's right. That's what I would
Yeah.
do.
No, so yeah. And this, I saw this on Petapixel, and there's video of this because apparently there was somebody behind them with a dash cam. And I have to, there is, this is a safe place, I hope. I'm a very cynical person. And when I saw that, I was like, God, that's awfully convenient. And they started to GoFundMe to replace this stuff. And they asked for like $4,000, and now they're like just over $7,000. First thing I want to say is that's so awesome that there are good people in the world that saw that story and said, "Hey, that's terrible. Let's help. $40 out of my pocket or $30, isn't much for me, but it's going to make a big difference in this person's life." But I was a little frustrated that they felt like, or that they started a GoFundMe, because you should be insured, and maybe they are. Maybe I don't know the whole story. I don't know. But I just wanted to take this time to remind people that gear insurance is out there. As I said at the beginning of the show, I recently switched to State Farm, and I have a lot of gear, and it's just about $600 a year for me to cover all of my gear, and that really feels like a very reasonable rate.
Absolutely.
And I was able to set a very reasonable deductible. But they were asked, like, you want a $100 deductible, $250 deductible, $500, and I thought about like what repairs cost me usually, and kind of worked that out, and I feel like this was great. So
Heather in the chat room said about joining the PPA that insurance is included with that, and that is correct. And for the person who asked what is PPA, it's Professional Photographers of America, and I know I am a member of that. I think, David, I know you have been. And insurance is included in that. I do actually, since I have a studio, have additional insurance, which maybe, to be honest, that's not why I joined the PPA. So I haven't looked into that. I know that I took advantage of it, but I'm not sure if I would need to have the additional on top of it or not. So, but that is included. So it is a benefit and makes it worth it for me.
If you use PPA for just that, it's probably not a good deal. But if you're making use of the other aspects of PPA, which there's lots, then it probably is. Yeah. And they do drones too. Specifically have insurance policy for drones as well. So if you're doing any kind of business out there, or even if you're just kind of a hobbyist, it's just this gear is expensive, and from kind of random ridiculous crime like that to tripping and falling or knocking the camera over when it's on top of a tall rock. Those are all issues that I just kind of want to warn people are out there, and take advantage of insurance.
I've already used it. Not the PPA, but I have a policy through the Hartford, and I think I'm paying a little more than you are, Toby, and you probably have more gear than I do, so maybe I need to tweak that a little bit. It's but I've got a lot of stuff insured, and last year I had an unfortunate event where a big light fell and hit my laptop and sent it flying across the room and messed the screen up and cracked the light. And, out of pocket was very little to get that stuff repaired. And so it's just like, of course, and it would have been a couple $1,000s to replace, or it would have been about $3,000 to replace everything. So it was well worth it. So.
Well, I know. And I think sometimes we think like, oh, what are the chances somebody's going to break into my car? Well, that's not what's going to happen. Most likely we're going to knock it over ourselves.
Yeah.
Like I will.
Yeah.
I spill coffee every day. I am going to break here. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. That's right.
And the question, does PPA cover the entire world? I don't know about their insurance, but PPA is, despite the name, a worldwide organization. And so you can join from outside the U.S. I don't know about the insurance part of that, though, so I'm sorry to say that. And Digital Photo Mentor says, if you're shooting professionally, no excuse for not having insurance. You're absolutely right. And you need to have liability insurance. Somebody trips over your lights. It's just nice peace of mind. It helps me sleep a little better knowing that I'm covered there. So, yeah. All right, I wanted to talk about that, and I don't know. I think we answered questions as we went along. Do we have any that popped up that I missed? A couple of quick ones. Teresa says, has anyone checked out the new JPEG artifact tool in Photoshop yet? My answer is no.
No.
Either of you?
But
I'm not even sure I heard about it.
I'll have to add that to the list of things to look at.
Yeah. I don't know about it, but
I feel like I can't recall off the top of my head what it does, but I watched something about it already.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. JPEG artifacts, Photoshop. New filter to instantly remove JPEG compression. So just to make sure everybody's on the same page here, every time you take an image and save it as a JPEG, you're throwing out little bits of information, and it kind of just can start to look a little jaggedy around areas of contrast usually. And this program apparently can recognize that and take it back to its, or not program, this is Photoshop. This filter can take it back to that. So I'm trying to think if I have JPEGs that I'm excited to try this with, because most of my stuff is raw. But if you end up with JPEGs, especially maybe if you scanned older pictures and you just have JPEG versions of them, that might be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe so.
Well, now that you say that, I do remember thinking it came across somewhere in my newsfeed, something about that, and I looked at it, but then I was kind of like, oh, I don't know how handy that is for me. But
Yeah. And that reminds me that Topaz has the JPEG to RAW program that will take a JPEG and convert it to RAW. I haven't used that because I don't have any JPEGs. I have RAWs. If I could go back further in time, there are a handful of shots that I've lost the RAWs to from back like 2009. And in my memory, they're like amazing shots, but I know they're not actually, so it doesn't really matter if I had the RAWs. So I don't know. Gareth wants to know, is Darktable better than Lightroom 6? So Darktable is a free open source version that looks very similar to Lightroom. It's kind of, it's the GIMP to Photoshop, Darktable to Lightroom. And I don't know, I haven't used it in years and years and years. But it's free, and if it supports your RAW files and you're on a budget, that might be a nice option.
Yeah.
GIMP to me was always pretty rough. Tonya, you teach, you got a budget, you said you use Photoshop Elements. Did you ever consider GIMP?
no, I have people ask me about GIMP all the time, to the point that I feel like I should probably become better at it. But I always tell people, like, you can just get Photoshop.
I don't even know what you guys are talking about, so there's that.
It's an open source version of Photoshop cobbled together by a bunch of nerdy guys, and it's clear that they've never hired any designers.
Okay.
It has a lot of great features that are very Photoshop similar, but it looks rough. And gosh, I feel like I'm really shallow right now judging a book by its cover, but it's hard to get past the interface for me.
Well, call me. I mean, I'm cynical too, if that hasn't been made obvious over the years. But I don't know. I mean, I realize everybody's on a budget, but $10 a month, if you're taking a serious enough interest in this to really want to dive in with other photographers and comment and ask, pretty intense questions about how to edit and what to do with your photos, and you're eyeing all this expensive gear and lenses. Like, it just kind of feels like $10 a month is like, that's 2 cups of coffee at Starbucks, really. And
Yeah.
it's just, I think the whole subscription thing is probably what I think. It's the idea that it's a subscription that has upset people more than the actual amount that you have to pay per month. And so, and I'm not judging. If you're really like, I can't afford it, then by all means, that's fair. But trying to find some alternative that's free, that's going to be clunky and a disaster, is that worth it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and it really depends on the level of interest that you have in editing, because the people who came to me and asked about GIMP were doing work that I was like, you're ready to invest in the right program. Like the stuff that you're asking me to do, you don't want to have to figure that out in GIMP.
Exactly.
That's what Photoshop is for. So if you're just learning and playing around, maybe that's a really great starting point. But I do think there are so many things we waste $10 on a month. So I just think that this is something that if you are regularly editing photos, even if you're not making money off of them, but if it's a hobby that's meaningful to you, it's just a worthwhile investment. So.
Well said. Digital Photo Mentor asked, do you guys have a comprehensive comparison of all these programs? I'll say in the pen community, David McKay has done a couple of videos on DxO Lab. He's not a Lightroom user, so he's excited to have something that is kind of bridge-like, but with a little bit more of that organization and editing tools. That is a one-time purchase as opposed to a subscription. I'll be sharing more about my experience with Pixelmator, but beyond that, we don't have a complete comparison of all of them. But join Pen, and I'm happy to have a detailed discussion and talk about it a little bit more. But I hope to get some more content out there about some of the alternatives. I have done a Capture One overview a while back. I don't think it's dated yet, but I think the interface is pretty much the same. But they have added some nice features.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, that wraps up this show. Tonya, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Really appreciate it. Folks, if you're watching this long, a great way to thank my guests for their time is to go check them out on Instagram, follow them, see what they're up to. Tanya's got some great creative work on there, so you can follow her at tonyawilhelm.artist.
Thank you.
And Tonya, I'm so excited. I have an autocomplete where I say Mish Mash default, and then it fills out everybody's information. And I had your name spelled wrong in that autocomplete, and so every time I just forget. And every time Steve Partridge would be like, "You spelled her name wrong again. You spelled her name wrong again."
Thanks, Steve.
But I fixed it, so it automatically is correct now.
That's
I'm
great.
so smart. Yeah, thanks.
I mean, our name does start the same.
Yeah. True.
All right. And on my left or right, I don't know, is David Carr. David, thanks so much for hanging out with us this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Folks, go follow him. Go give that podcast a listen to and check out his YouTube channel. You've got a couple of reviews up there. And we're going to see more from you. You have the great How I Edit series as well.
Yeah, thank you. I've been attempting to make these videos a little bit more frequently, but I'm super picky about the way I talk and look, and that's just that's just what it comes down to.
I feel that.
I hear you. And chat room, thanks for hanging out with us. Really appreciate it all. And if you're in there now and you haven't already, hit the thumbs up button. That's a really nice way to thank us for our time. And if you aren't a subscriber, it's nice to hit that subscribe along with the little bell so you'll be notified of future videos. Typically, this show is on Wednesdays at 2 Pacific Standard Time. As I said, though, it's going on a little hiatus because there is actually some small group, socially distant, careful travel over the next couple of weeks. So I think I might be able to have a show at the very end of February, but it might be a little bit longer than that. So Pen members, I'll see you in Pen frequently, but Mish Mash will be back in a couple weeks. Let's say that.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Yeah.
Bye.